Whose car is that? So I was scrolling through Facebook the other day right before bed, as one does but probably shouldn't, and I came across this interesting BuzzFeed article that I wanted to share. It's titled "People Are Sharing Money Advice," advice in quotes because, spoilers, it's bad advice, they heard from their parents that turned out to be totally false. Also, if you're new here, welcome to the Dana Yee Show. My name is Dana, and on this channel, I cover everything money and finance. This is my third take of this video, so if you appreciate the amount of effort that goes into my channel, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more awesome content. Now, let's get on to the bad advice. My mom said that since so much money goes to waste on interest and payment plans for large purchases like a car, it's better to just buy things outright. The same point comes up multiple times through this article, so I'll skip through those, but the idea here is that their parents say that if they don't have the money to, buy a house, buy a car, buy a computer, whatever, they shouldn't buy it. And this statement is pretty interesting. I've since realized that this is fine advice if you can afford it, but most people don't have access to that kind of money. I would agree with this parental advice to a degree. On the very wrong end where I disagree is mortgages. Most people don't have enough money to put a 20% down payment on a house, much less just pay for the entire house outright. On the other end where I might agree is for small purchases, and I use small because small amounts of money are different for every person. For example, I think I saw a video a while ago where a lady financed a pair of $200 headphones. And yeah, while $200 is a lot of money, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much, and I don't think you should buy a pair of headphones if you need to finance it, because the amount of interest you're going to end up paying, especially if you're making the minimum payment, is sometimes 2 or 3 times the original purchase price, which would be really bad. 2, don't take out college loans and avoid using that wasn't even close to the word. And avoid using a credit card in college. Now let's break this into the 2 parts. For the second part, I agree that this is bad advice because you should use a credit card. Credit cards are not inherently evil, and you need credit cards and other forms of loans to build your credit, which is vital in getting a mortgage, getting auto loans, other types of loans. And for the college loans part, I agree to a certain degree. If you take out a reasonable amount of loans that you can reasonably pay off within hopefully a few years after getting your degree, I would say that's okay. But if you take out $200,000 of college loans to get a underwater basket weaving degree, that would definitely not be worth it. 3, my parents told me that I should never ever use a credit card and that they were bad and would put you in unimaginable debt. They told me that I should just use a debit card, but now I know that credit cards aren't evil. Lol. So, credit cards are not inherently bad. One analogy that hopefully makes sense is a baseball. Baseballs aren't inherently bad. You can use them to play baseball, which I guess is a good thing. You can also pelt them at people and significantly hurt them, which would not be a good thing, in which case baseballs would be bad. So just because credit cards can be used in a bad way does not mean that they are inherently evil. And one thing that I don't think that some people understand with credit cards is if you pay off a credit card in full every month, you don't pay any interest, in which case it's basically like a debit card, but you can get the benefits of a credit card like reward points, airline miles, cash back, whatever. 4 is pretty similar to 1 before, so I'll skip to number 5. They said putting money into a standard savings, that's my eraser, not my pointer. They said putting money into a standard savings account will earn you money. By money, they should have said pennies. And yeah, this is completely true, especially now where interest rates are so low, so the interest you're earning on a lot of even high yield savings account is really, really low. So yeah, if you want to build wealth, a savings account is not the way to go. They do have their place if you want to keep your emergency fund or whatever in there, but you cannot make a lot of money generally from savings accounts. Number 6, my dad was terrible with his money, so basically I'm doing the opposite of what he did and doing really well. I'm frugal like my mom. Forgot to switch back to my pointer. I am frugal like my mom and mainly only shop sales racks. This is an interesting one because it means that your parents had different different views on finances, wherein the mom was frugal, shops for things on sale, and the dad is just really terrible with his money. This one is interesting. If your parents do not good things with money, don't learn from that, maybe do the opposite of that. But if your parents know how to build wealth, they're frugal, you can also learn from that. Number 7, this one gets my blood boiling a little bit because it is just objectively wrong. My dad taught me that pay raises were dangerous if they put you in a new tax bracket. He was wrong. This is just flat out wrong. I actually have an entire video dedicated to this, so if I remember, there will be a link up there. I'm not going to re-explain it because, again, I have a whole video on it, but this is just wrong and it's frustrating. Always take a pay raise if you get one. 8, again, is similar to the ones before, so I'll skip. 9, this one is also infuriating. This article it made me a little bit angry reading it. 9, my father-in-law taught my husband and his siblings to not invest in a 401k or use a traditional savings account. Instead, he had them put their money in a weird long-term trust account. I'll get to the trust in a second, but the first part is, I think that's just bad advice. 401ks and traditional savings account, whether it be traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, whatever, are really helpful and really beneficial in building wealth. 1, they lower your taxable income. 2, you put in pre-tax dollars. And 3, a lot of the times employers have what's called a 401 contribution match. For example, they might match you up to 10% of your income. So if you put in 10% of your income, they'll also put in that amount, which is basically just free money. So always use a 401k, Roth IRA, whatever, if you can. And onto the trust thing, there's a comment under here that said he found out he's paying $10 a year in fees for an account accruing 10 cents in interest a year, aka the account is losing $9.90 a year for doing nothing, for holding your money. You can do that in a checking account and earn like pennies on the dollar, but you're not losing money at least. So this is just bad advice on top of bad advice. 10. If your parents expect you to share what you earn when you are a legal adult, you're not required to. This one is interesting, and I think it depends on your financial and also just your relationship with your parents. For me, I'm like fortunate enough to be in a position where I'm really close with my parents and we do talk about finances a lot. In fact, they help me learn a lot of what I know, but I also do see where this is coming from. I've heard a lot of horror stories where parents borrow money from their kids and never give it back, or the other way around, or between grandparents and kids, in which case it's really helpful to have boundaries when it comes to money. Number 11, do not ever put your student loan living expenses reimbursement, those are terrible circles, whatever, into a joint account with anyone. This kind of touches on the point before. I think the point of this point, I just said point a lot of times, whatever, is that if you have like a joint account with, say, your parents, they could borrow the money and never give it back, or say, oh, I thought this was just money for the both of us to spend and never give it back. Both of which are problematic. 12, my parents never really talked about money and kind of pretended we did not have that much. In my opinion, finances and money should be talked about more, especially between parents and kids. I would have found it really cool, to be honest, in middle school or high school. Elementary school may have been a little bit early, if like at the dinner table my parents were like, hey, here's how to balance a checkbook. Here's our budget. Here's where all of our money is going. Here's how we're investing. Here's how we're saving. I would have ate that up. Eaten that up. And this is an interesting situation because this person is saying that their parents never talked about money, so they didn't realize how much money they had until they were like, oh, our house is really big and they just paid for a college for 6 children out of pocket. I think regardless of where you are on the money spectrum, it's important to talk about finance with your kids because they can learn a lot and also appreciate more. 13. My parents said you shouldn't have different bank accounts because the fees will eat you up. If you open a bank account, you should look at the fees, you should look at the interest, you should look at all of these things in advance so you know what you're getting yourself into. And secondly, I think there are situations where it's a good idea to have multiple bank accounts. One would be have a separate account for separate purposes. For example, you might have one account for your emergency fund. You might have one for a holiday or vacation that you're planning to take. You might have one for general day-to-day expenses. 14. My wife's parents told her that buying a timeshare, oh, that was my left hand, that was not a circle, that buying a timeshare was the smartest and most cost-effective way to do vacation planning. When we looked into it a little bit more and ran the numbers, I was stunned. They're a borderline scam. Now, I don't have enough knowledge about timeshares to call them a flat-out scam, but from what I do understand, you pay a certain amount a year to be able to access like a vacation location, say that 10 times fast, certain times throughout the year. The main problem I see with this one is that you don't actually own the location. No matter how long you pay for this, you're not building equity, and there are probably better ways to do vacation planning. And I think a timeshare is for like one location, so what if I want to go somewhere else? Do I want to have to get another timeshare in that location? I don't know. Number 15, saving money but not spending it wisely. My folks said to save every penny you get and not spend a dime. I had heaps of money saved up, but because I wasn't taught how to spend money responsibly, I blew through my savings very quickly. I think this is a good point because normally I say there are 2 parts of building wealth: make money and save money. But I think there's a third point too. Make money, save money, but also spend wisely. It's inevitable that you're going to spend money. Food, water, rent, mortgage, transportation, whatever. You have to spend money. And there are healthy ways to spend money. So even if you save all of your income, if you don't know how to spend it, you could spend it all at once and then all of your saving is for naught. Circling back to stuff I've mentioned before, I think this is something that should be talked about between parents and children because it's really, really important. And last, but certainly not least, lastly, they said to spend money when you have it because you don't know when someone is going to take it or ask to borrow it. I don't know if this is the right phrase, but scarcity mindset comes to mind where when you have something, you have to consume it or use it before it gets taken away. In most cases, your money isn't going to disappear. Yeah, sure, there are like hacks and and scams and stuff, but those are super, super rare, and a lot of accounts are FDIC insured and whatever. So I don't really agree with this point, although it is interesting that they're saying like, oh, someone is asking to borrow it. What I will to say to that is your money is your money. You can refuse to lend it to somebody. So that would solve the ask to borrow it part. This is an interesting advice. Again, quotes because it's bad advice. And we have reached the end of the article and the end of, well, my frustration, because a lot of these were just really, really wrong. And again, frustrating. If you would like to alleviate my frustration, make sure to bop that like button and subscribe for more awesome content. And also, let me know what the worst piece of financial advice you've ever gotten is. I'm really curious to hear. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next week.